Hey guys, today we're talking about soul care in your marriage and in the book with Stephanie Duncan Smith. Stephanie is executive editor at Baker Books. I have been so grateful and blessed to work with her on the Enneagram and Marriage Project. And upon meeting her, it was just a fit. I knew that she could bring depths to this book. I knew she could help me with the staying power of sitting with deep emotions. And sure enough, the book is here. We were able to bring it to you. And I'm hearing from you that you are connecting with it. I'm so grateful you are enjoying your time. I have been loving reading through your reviews, and I am so grateful for just even my friends who are surprising me with this sense of like, oh my gosh, like, thank you for bringing this new birth into all of our lives. And I'm like, oh, wow, like that's something I didn't see was that people would just be excited at being part of a project and something new. And as Steph says today with us, this is a new beginning. We're birthing something together as a community. So I hope you're still enjoying and celebrating with me. We've been having more book tours this week. We had, as you might have heard on Monday, Hannah's big celebration. So that's behind. And I feel like I'm, fully able to be in here with you, both feet in week by week. And also being with my family has been a good testimony of balance and just making sure I attend to them in every possible need, which we know there's lots of possible needs as well, so that we can really together keep committing ourselves to growth and balance and rest. So very excited we get to talk to Stephanie today because not only are we going to talk about the soul behind the book and why we felt like this was the book to bring to you and like why we were like, this is a project that needs to be put into the world, hard as it will be, as books always are to produce, and against all the other books that could be out there, why some things should be books and some are just other kinds of projects. What we really want to talk about also, though, is writing in general and how writing can help us with soul care and also soul care and marriage together, whatever may come of the projects. I know Stephanie and I both really, as we'll talk about today, really like writing just for ourselves too. Writing is not just about publishing or sharing, but we both feel a strong communication with just how we're doing. And something I was writing yesterday just for myself was about how, I want to sit in the shadows with people, not just in the heights. Like that is something that I felt about Stephanie from day one. She put her cards on the table, told me her Enneagram type. Being a four, I'm like, oh, she's going to sit in those steps with me. And that's what we need, right? We need our spouses to do the same, where we're like, I want to reach for goals with you, but when I fall on my butt sometimes, which I will you be there to hold me, to let me cry? Will you be there for me to be able to walk with you on not just the glorious, shiny moments, but also these hard places and spaces that will inevitably come? This is how I felt even about Stephanie as an editor peeking into my life. And I continue to do that work, as do you, of finding safety and feeling just 1 inch closer to safety together. So that's the work we're doing here. We're becoming more expansive. And I just welcome you to this shorter conversation today, but very meaningful, where we get to hear Stephanie's heart for her marriage, for the work of writing, and for hopefully you as you think about the ways that you can grow closer to your spouse in this process of soul care with us, and maybe even find some writing time for yourself to dig in, or a new project that you just decide to talk with your spouse about as you invite soul care in together through the highs and the lows of marriage. So can't wait to bring her on. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us for the E&M pod. We're so delighted to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh my goodness. Well, I have prefaced this with just how much some of my writer friends are even just like, oh my gosh, I have an editor crush on Stephanie. You are so awesome. Many people love you, adore you. Thank you for joining. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's very kind. Thanks for the welcome.
Yeah.
I'm where do I even begin? Yeah. I'm an editor. I've been doing this for almost 15 years. That's my professional work. I also but really I'm a reader first. I've always been a reader from childhood. I'm a writer for personal enjoyment and just love the world of books that I am so honored to work in. Um, I I talk about sometimes how I'm so glad that I get to be in a job that suits my type, which we'll talk more about, but I'll just go ahead and self-identify. I'm an Enneagram 4 with a 3 wing. And something I love about my work that I think fours generally appreciate is that I am enabled to skip the small talk altogether and skip straight to the deep talk. So with authors and writers, I get to just say, what makes you tick? Tell me the heart of the thing, just right off the bat. And I love that. And I love working with authors such as yourself, Krista, who are so gifted at getting to the heart of things. And the way that books do the same thing for all of us. They just cut to it and go deep. So that's some of what I do in my professional day to day. I personally, because I know we'll talk about this, I've been married to my husband for 13 years, and we have a toddler and a newborn currently. So that's life for us right now.
Ah, yes, you're like, I'm in it all. And I love how you're able to go deep, even though you're in it all. And you could be like, I'm taking a different genre, but your courage is seen. And that's, I think, one of my favorite things about you is right from the time I met you, you were like, I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'm an Enneagram
Yeah,
4. And
yeah.
it just helped me so much to be like, oh, this is a safe place to land with my heart, which is so precarious.
Mhm,
So my audience has been really hearing a lot about you in the past few
mhm.
episodes, because we really appreciate that you do that. I also have heard you talk about how you take writers and remind them that sometimes you're writing for your own art, or you share that you have
Oh, yeah.
pieces of work, and as do I, that nobody will ever see. And I just want our listeners to know that, like, you may not have a published book, but can you just speak to that for one sec?
I'm so glad you're talking about that because I don't think it's talked about nearly enough. And
Yeah.
especially in your work,
Mhm.
you know so deeply the value of doing that interior work for yourself. And I think of writing as just one possible practice for engaging that inner work
Mhm.
and a way of going deep with yourself so that you can go deep with others. And that is, if you ask me, that is never, ever, ever wasted.
Mhm.
Um, I have
Great.
in my possession, my just to give you one real life example, my grandmother kept a journal, a daily log, is I think what she called it, and
Mhm.
it's so simple. It's just here's what we did today, and here's some reflections on it, and I cherish those. I have a couple of them. I mean, she kept them over the years,
Wow.
but I have just a couple of them and I cherish them. She never published.
Yeah.
Nobody knows her name.
Right.
She didn't have a following. She didn't public speak, and none of that matters
Right.
because she paid attention to the details of her life, and those details mattered. And
Mm.
I get to witness that as her granddaughter today and learn from that just daily wisdom,
Wow.
the wisdom of paying daily attention to your life.
Wow.
So that's never wasted. And I love publishing, obviously. I'm so pro this weird and wonderful work that we're in, but that's not the only medium that matters. And
Mm.
I feel very strongly about that. So, yeah, I'm so for a personal writing practice. And you don't have to identify as a writer. You don't have to write, you don't have to have fancy vocabulary or style. It's just for you. And when you know that, it can free yourself up to even be more creative and generative, again, just for yourself. That can be a really beautiful, profound practice. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Yes, me
Strongly
too
agree.
with you. And I have poems occasionally, I will share them with my daughters, and
Yeah.
they're like so good at sacred holding, especially my 4, of course. And I feel like there might be small segments. You're reminding me even of a couple I had almost 2 decades back where the husband was so red-faced, stressed, automotive Detroit worker. And then in our work, he began to start writing poetry, and he would
Wow.
just share them in his sessions. And they were very simple and sweet and basic. And he
That's
and his
wonderful.
wife loved them. And so I don't even remember that a lot with my clients, but like we just both of us said, if you're listening, we do this.
And
Mhm.
yeah, so thank you for starting us there. We're so excited that we have a book together. You have helped me so much to dig for what's best to share. But
Mhm.
we want to hear about you today. So tell us a little bit about, like you said, your four and your marriage pairing and the way you guys glow out there and how you met too.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Where to begin? So, my husband, Zach, and I met when we were pretty young. So
Mhm.
we met in college,
Aw.
and um and we married when we were relatively young.
Mhm.
Um we My husband is an 8 with a 9 wing. And I don't know, Krista, if this will resonate with you or not, but this is the way I often tell it. When I first encountered the Enneagram, I read Richard Rohr's book,
Mhm.
and I was reading it. And I know a lot of people have this experience, but I was reading it. I was reading about my own type, and it was like holding up a mirror.
Mm.
And then when I read about the type 8, I was like, this is my husband. It was just so clear to me. And here's my take. I don't know if yeah, you may have your own, but the way I often tell it, because this is just true for us, is that I felt like, at least with Zach and I, um, the way that the way that we read our types, the way that we responded to our type only furthered our true type. So for me, as a 4, reading about the 4, my honest human initial response was, I always knew I was special.
Ah, I
That
love
I was
that.
like, see, I knew it. I knew it. So it was just this kind of humorous, like, there it is. And for Zach, his initial response, so I read the book first, and I was just telling him about it, and I was like, I think this is you. And
Mhm.
his response as an 8 was, this is all bunk. This is made up. No, no, not
Mhm.
buying it. I'm
Mhm.
skeptical.
Mhm.
Surely this is an oversimplification. So it just, he took the fighter response, and I took the very like individualist response to our own type, and it got us just like
Like,
that.
yeah,
So,
love that.
yeah, but it was truly so helpful.
Mm.
I probably was introduced to the Enneagram maybe 5 years into our marriage, um,
It's
and
great.
have done a lot of reading and researching into it since. And I think, yeah, both of us are um, kind of, hmm, there's an intensity, I think, to the 4 and to the 8,
Mhm.
um, that has been good for us to be self-aware of.
Mhm.
And it's also been so helpful in learning about each other and understanding the needs underlying the behaviors. So
Mm.
I think that's been really just beneficial for us and an ongoing process. It's nothing we'll ever have fully figured out.
I love that you know that. I love that you're able to say it's going to keep showing up again and again and again. And that was frankly one of my favorite things about getting to work with you through this book process is something this whole audience talks a lot about is we just love the real. We just can't. I'm speaking for you out there. Sorry if I'm not speaking correctly, but I think most of you have told me you agree with this that we don't like when somebody's like cheesy and fake about their marriage and like
Yeah.
it's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
Yep.
no, we've had so much trauma. Like legitimately, everyone here knows that Wes comes on, he's like, blow
Mhm.
my cover. He was like, throw me under the bus for the stories, and then we decided not to.
Yeah.
But like the truth is, like, we've been places, and like you said, we'll keep going places. But I
Mhm.
like how you're aware and that
Mhm.
as to a 4 and an 8 for those who are maybe not this far into the book or into this pod yet, they're emotionally reactive types, they're passionate, so you do
Mhm.
put these feelings out there in a big way sometimes, I would imagine. And I
Yeah.
love hearing you say we're learning that when we do these big behaviors that there's
Mhm.
something deeper underlying. So that's fascinating. How do you guys get there? Do you take deep breaths? Do you pause? Do you take breaks?
It's interesting. I am definitely the the emotional heart in our relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and Zach is very passionate, very passion driven, has a strong, like, immediate opinion, that he's willing to go to bat for.
Mhm.
I think something that we're still learning about probably in our relationship is that um, he is a fighter, but I'm not the one that he fights.
Mm.
And something that he channels that elsewhere. And something that I've had to kind of come awake to is I'm allowed to have my big feelings. Everyone is. I'm not scared of them.
Mhm.
Um,
For sure.
and that's good, but also there's a healthy way to process those and not as for, all types face those choices, and that's a core one of mine. Um, but something I've had to really be aware of in myself is he's allowed to have his big feelings too, and
Mm.
I don't have a corner on that. Um,
Wow.
so to make space for that has
Mhm.
been a practice for him, because it might not be the most immediate impulse for him to lead with that. Um, and when you're just so used to being in your feelings and it's so second nature and comfortable to you, those can take precedent in a way that I don't ever want to put on him or anyone. um so that's something that I've personally been waking up to and trying to kind of refine the raw edges of that, because my hope is that I make space not just for my emotions, but the authentic emotions of others too.
Mm. I love that. And as an 8, he really appreciates probably when you've clarified some of it too. Because I know
Hmm.
our body types really appreciate that through line and clarification of here's what's going on with me so that we don't
Yeah,
process all of that with them. It's just almost like it doesn't fit with their nature.
yeah.
So I
Mhm.
like how you're like, I have to do my work and then I have to share it with him and I'm going to, but when he has something big also, I have to be ready for that. And that takes
Yeah.
a lot of courage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for him, it takes courage to also voice some of those, kind of what's going on under the surface. And he would say this himself, but his kind of natural reaction to his eightness kind of manifests in in anger is maybe one expression, but also just the injustice of the world.
Mhm.
um and that can light a fire under him in some really beautiful ways,
Mm.
because he knows that things should be better and people deserve better, and it's often on behalf of others,
Yeah.
which is something I've always noted about him and loved about him.
Oh.
um and I think actually for him, the courage can come into, what he's allowed to be sad, disappointed, angry for the things that don't, for the injustice in his own life, or the distance between the way things are and the way that things should be, or that we hope that they will be, and that's okay for him to feel that way too.
Yeah. And I'm sure he just so appreciates you giving him that space because I know with 8s in our lives, many of them don't have a 4 in their families to come around and to say, like you're allowed to feel too. And I'm safe for you to do that with. But also as you're growing, that I won't keep you here forever. I'm not going to hold you hostage.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use it against you.
Yep.
Um, and I'm not going to pull them up when you're not ready to share. So I love how you're
Yeah.
developing safety. It takes years, and like you said, you're still working it out. But what is a way you see the two of you shine out there? I'm already seeing some of it. I know you love making
Mhm.
bold statements. So tell me more about what you feel like the two of you bring together.
mm, I think uh I wouldn't say that this is linked to our types necessarily. It's just who we are in the world, but we individually and together, I think we've always carried our own ambitions.
Mm.
And I don't say ambition in the sense of something big,
Mhm.
just something specific and intentional,
Yeah.
and a desire for a direction in life or something that we want to accomplish. We also are, for better and 100% for worse, we work really hard, and we've had seasons in our marriage that we worked way too hard and we did not have good boundaries at all. That's something we continually fight against too, but I think we have always been in those respective. So my husband,
Oh,
he
he does, yeah.
teaches at the university level. So he's in academia. He's a researcher. So he's gone through many programs, many degrees. And I also went through a grad program while working full time. And so we've kind of had our own tracks. And I don't, I, we have always, I think, offered each other a strong base of support for doing those things. And I think about this a lot. You could speak to this probably even more particularly, but I know that the studies are pretty clear that when a person has a strong base of security, it creates that safety to take greater risks.
Mhm.
And I think that has been a big theme in our life together,
Mhm.
because we've had the security of us.
Mhm.
We have felt the safety to say, you know what, I'm going to go for this,
Yeah.
or I'm going to try this. And also, in that going for and trying, I mean, we've failed along the way. If you're looking at a purely outward objective sense, we have fallen short of
Oh, yeah.
the hoped for goal. And we've always been able to come back to center and still have that togetherness and trust that I think we've built and cultivated as just, a homing place.
Oh,
And I think that's especially significant for us because through our ambitions and the things that we want to do in life, we've physically moved a lot. So we've moved for grad school, we've moved for job opportunities, we've dotted the US. So we've lived in a lot of places, we've moved in and out of communities, but the space that is us has always been the constant amid so many variables. And I think that's where there's just a lot to that. Um,
Mhm.
I think, yeah, there's a lot to that. So I think that's something that has kept us steady through many changes. And also just the support and the safety, but also you got this. Like, I believe in you. And not in a flattering or obligatory sense, but a true, if anybody can do this, you can.
Oh, yeah. And I give you that freedom to pursue this with knowing if it doesn't work out, you shift, you start to nuance. We
Yeah.
love each other. We're each other's foundation. I love how you use the word homing. And I
Mhm.
love how you talked about how we can have some healthy risk once we have the secure base. I think all the time about, and everyone here knows that the Maslowian mountain, where we have our secure base on the bottom and I almost think of it in the Enneagram pragmatism, or that self-pres instinct layering. And then you move up to the ideals. And I know 4's an idealist, as is 7. And so if you want to be up there on the top of that mountain, like you said, you've got to have tenacity and grit.
Mhm. Mm-hmm.
and a secure base. And some days you're not going to make it even close to the top, but you still might try. Sounds like in your pairing, and a lot of
Yeah.
us pairings out there are like that. And then we can just kind of roll back down, almost like there's this cushion at the bottom to to just let us like
Yeah.
flop down and be like, not today. You have a
Yeah.
toddler, you have a baby. This is not going to go as high. Or for me, you have girls in college who need you all the time to process. So and yet, if we just stayed there and didn't try for these goals, I think life would be not nearly as interesting. I think your marriage mission doesn't get
Yeah.
to go as far. So I
Yeah.
love for you to inspire us all with these goals. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I maintain I would be a completely different person if I had a different partner who I sensed only supported me in that obligatory way.
Mm.
I would be a different person.
Yeah, you would. And it would be beautiful in a different way in some ways, because I'm almost thinking of like you with a nine or something. Because I see that with he has a nine wing, so that might not be the best analogy here, but like my daughter who's a four with my daughter who's a nine, they're such a peaceful vibe, and their tenacity looks very different from a four with an eight. And so I see them with their two eight best friends, and there's just all these different dynamics. So that's
Yeah.
why I love how we've been able to work together to bring out every pairing and the beauty of the differences and the
Yeah.
nuances. And you sort
Yeah.
of named it in an underlying way when you said, I really feel like this is the way we are. It might even be outside of our Enneagram types, because research tells us the couples who do
Sure.
the best out there are just the ones who can tell a healthy narrative.
Mhm.
So before you go, I wanted to ask you what you felt like. I know you love to work with passion projects, and like you said, you like to be bold. There's this polarity or maybe paradox about you. Tell us why you felt like Enneagram and this particular book project was a meaningful one for you to spend your limited time on. And I'm so thankful you did, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's such an honor to see it in the sacrament of print. I was thrilled when I got my own copy. And you know, a couple things stand out to me. I mean, first, I'll peel back the curtain a little bit and talk about how I presented your title at our pub board, because that is the space where I'm selling an idea. So a couple things that stood out to me then and now are, first of all, Krista, just your experience and credentials to write this book with your clinical background is huge to me.
Hmm.
There are many Enneagram books out there. This is a huge conversation. I think probably you and many other listeners on the podcast are here because you crave that depth of discovery about yourself,
Mhm.
with the Enneagram kind of jokes out there. But I think we want more than that. So your book to me gives that more. And I'm so I love, yes, the credentials and the depth of experience and insight that you bring through your work across mediums with couples. Um, Also, the something that really is striking to me, I think it would be all too easy to theorize about which types are really the ideal pairings. And you refuse to do that from the outset, because that's a danger zone.
Mm.
And I just love and so appreciate your grounding premise
Mm.
that any type with any type in health can glow,
Mhm.
and that there are no ideal pairings. That's a myth that doesn't exist. You can get yourself into trouble really quickly
Mhm.
um, by going down that road. So I appreciate just that grounding principle of yours, but also as you read through the comprehensive pairing profiles that you've created, you can't help but believe it.
Mm.
And I think this is a testament to your work and vision, Krista. But literally, as I read every single profile, you cast it in such a way that is just stunning. And you have me believing it anew every single time. Like, wow, a 1 with a 2, a 1 with a 3, a 1 with a 4. They're all amazing.
Oh,
And it's true. So I think there's just a generosity of your vision. I think that helps us believe it about ourselves,
mm,
and about our own partnerships. Um,
mm,
and also, you hold up an honest mirror to when we are not in health, and how we can support a partner who may be struggling, or
mm,
on their own path in becoming, how we can support ourselves. um, there's just it's a rich treasury
mm.
of of practices and insights for that path of becoming, and you're just a really good guide.
Ah, thank you so much for seeing my passion for couples, believing in it, and making it a safe place, just like you said we want to do as couples for each other, because I absolutely have to have that as a thinking type. And wow, it's just so new for me after self-publishing and not really going this route for that exact reason, to then be welcomed in with somebody who says, like, I see your work and I believe in it. And I also want to promote it so that others can find that healing. It was such a gift, is such a gift. And like I said, just even not knowing, wow, how do I put myself into this work while being a credible source as well as a vulnerable participant? You just gave us that extra glow in our pairing. So thank you for that editorial writer pairing. I can see how much you love writers and support
Mhm.
them. And yeah, just anyone who gets to work with you would be so blessed, lucky, and to get to read your beautiful work at Slant Letter. Can you tell us where people can find you?
Yeah, I publish an occasional newsletter on Substack called Slant Letter, which is it's a newsletter dedicated to writers in the writing craft, but also soul care for the creative life, which, as we know, can be pretty angsty sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can find that at slantletter.com. Um, and Krista, I also want to say something else that I so appreciate about your book, and my initial vision for it is, I don't believe that this is a book to be read once and shelved.
Hmm.
This is a book to return to and return to. And I really truly think over the years, revisit those underlines and read them in a new way, with new offerings for where you are in your personal life and in your partnership. And those are the kind of books that I'm passionate about publishing, because we want them to have a long life.
Mm.
And your book is designed to be just that, a reference book to return to, and with something new in it for you every single time.
Mm.
Um, so I'm so excited that I think the journey is just beginning.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. And I am right there with you guys on the page. You hear Stephanie is too. We're doing our work alongside, and it's as much accountability for me as you. But we did make it a beautiful cover for you, as Stephanie held it up earlier. So you guys are going to have fun in the pages. You are, yay, she's holding it up again if you're watching on YouTube. And you are going to also get so deep with us. So know that Stephanie's 4 layering is in it. Thank you so much for Slant Letter, for all the time with me. I cherish it. And like you said, we'll continue to cherish it. And thank you for just honoring this time with us today to tell everybody about the book too. Thanks.
It's my honor. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Ah, thank you so much for being here as you got to bear witness. Even when I'm popping off and running over to, like, oh, okay, let's find Stephanie at Slant Letter, which I want you to. Oh my gosh, I want you to find her at her Instagram and Slant Letter. But even so, when we do that, she's like, Krista, sit with your book. This is a new beginning. And I just love having people in my corner who have varied gifts, because I feel like, and I know this is true for you, we do better work when we're surrounded by people of differing temperaments who can hold us to the fire in different beautiful ways, with the gentility of, like, okay, the glow, not the scorching kind of fire. So let's be that together. Let's keep on loving each other and our mates, especially our family, so that we can get good lift off. And I will talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your week.